Hiya, Georgie. What a nice boat. Do you want it back?
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Fan Rank, and happy spooky season to all. Today we are going to be revealing what you, the fans, have chosen as the top 10 greatest horror movies of the 21st century. I'm Mackenzie. I am so excited, and I am joined by my esteemed colleagues, Tim and Andrew. Guys, do you want to say hello?
Hey, I'm Tim. I'm a writer with WatchMojo, and I also float down here.
And I'm Andrew. I'm a writer and voiceover guy for WatchMojo, and I'm tethered to us ranking this.
Ooh. I like yours better.
Yeah.
If it weren't for you, I never would have danced at all.
Andrew wins that round, but we'll get there. So now, before we reveal the number 10 choice of the fans, I just wanted to thank all of our friends and fans who participated in the ranking of this list, who left us comments, reached out, participated in our polls, voted, etc. Thank you. Not possible without you. And we're super excited to reveal what you guys have chosen. So we're going to be looking at greatest horror movies of the 21st century today. If there's any ambiguity, the 21st century is 2000 until present day. I noticed in the comments there was a little bit of confusion about this, so clear that up right now. We will be looking at scariest, and we will be looking at most impactful. So this is what you, the fans, have chosen for top 10 greatest horror movies of the 21st century. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. In our number 10 spot, as chosen by the fans, we have The Babadook from 2014.
Ooh. No. That was Bane. That was not it.
Moving along to number 9. Thank you. Thank you for that. Tim, what do you think about The Babadook? Let us know.
I love this movie wholeheartedly. I'm so happy that it's had its staying power. I think it speaks to, just for this little movie from Australia, it speaks to its thematic and emotional underpinnings. To quote Scream, it is an amazing meditation on motherhood and grief.
What's your favorite scary movie?
The Babadook. It's an amazing meditation on motherhood and grief.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. I think the metaphor for grief and how it's embodied in this monster that we don't normally see, it's different. It's a unique kind of take on it. And of course, this is one of my favorite memes of the 21st century. In the backseat. Shout it out if you know it.
Why can't you be normal? Just be normal. And on the topic of the design of the monster, all of it was done using practical effects, which I think is amazing, super interesting. I think the filmmaker draws a lot from really historical animation, George Méliès, those old vampire movies like London After Midnight, these kind of spooky aesthetics that I think translate really well into this kind of bleak, monochrome world that they build that is really seeking to explore the fear of losing ourselves to darkness in grief. This is a really powerful movie. I think it's beautiful and exquisitely done. I was really excited to see that the fans put this at number 10.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
So moving right along to number 9. At number 9, as chosen by the fans, we have 28 Days Later from 2002.
World's worst place to get a flat, huh?
Fast Zombies. We got. It feels weird that it took over 35 years to get to Fast Zombies, but once we got there, yeah, it was a little slow crawl. But once we got there, I feel like we never looked back. This movie totally revolutionized the genre, not just in terms of the design of the infected, as they're called in the movie, but in terms of the bleakness of the apocalypse.
Yeah. That opening is so iconic of him just walking out and there's just nothing in the city. London is abandoned. It is a fantastic burner opening and such a great representation of how fast society falls apart in an apocalypse situation.
Hello!
It nailed it.
Totally. This movie came back a lot during the pandemic. I think a lot of people were revisiting this movie and seeing shots of these hyper busy, familiar locations in London being completely empty, I think, had this kind of eerie resonance at that time. But I think you raise a really good point, Tim, that this movie also helped breathe life back into the zombie genre. I mean, this was in 2002, not long after we get movies like Shaun of the Dead, The Walking Dead, all the Zack Snyder remake of Day of the Dead. Is that right? That's the one? I
Dawn
get them
of the
mixed
Dead,
up.
yeah.
Dawn of the Dead, thank you. I was like, that's not right,
many.
but I'm close. Yeah, they're all of the dead. But yeah, this movie like really like breathed life back into that genre. I think we're living in kind of like there's so much zombie content now. I think we can look back and thank 28 Days Later for that. Love this movie. Great choice.
That was longer than a heartbeat.
Now, sitting at the number 8 spot, we have A Quiet Place from 2018. I know you guys love this movie. I don't really connect with it that much, so I really want you guys to explore here a bit. Why is this movie so powerful? Why is it so beloved?
This movie, more than I think a lot of horror movies, is really just an experience. I mean, I think we can all, those of us who saw it in the theater can remember how wonderful the audience was because they weren't talking at all. Because this movie forces you to be quiet. And I think it's very good at playing with our expectations in terms of what's going to happen next. And to that end, I think it's also just a great representation of the deaf community, which is really underrepresented in horror movies.
True. Deafness has a strength, especially.
Yeah, I think the way it frames sound, and sound is so carefully positioned in that movie, these creatures that just hunt on sound. So all of the suspense is just one sound going off, and anchored by these powerful performances by the lead actors, and who really went out of their way to learn ASL and to be a part of the community and represent it accurately is so important. And I will say, when I saw it in movie theaters and someone dropped a box of Skittles, everyone jumped out of their seats. It was incredible.
The monsters love Skittles.
Yeah.
No, that's Shazam too.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Taste the rainbow.
All right, coming in at number 7 now, we have Evil Dead from 2013. God, I love this movie. Tim, what are your thoughts?
It gets better every time I see it. I think the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, that's pretty good. But I think the more stated in my watch abilities, it's just I've gotten to appreciate just the sheer operatic, I think is a good word for this, especially at the very end. Movies, I think in the last 10 years have gotten a lot better at blood quantity, and if you know what I'm talking about, the very end, it really goes whole hog in the best way possible. And I think it's perfectly suiting for the Evil Dead franchise as a whole.
You are all going to die tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think when doing a remake of Evil Dead, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, it doesn't really lean into that like absurdist humor aspect of it. It's not really funny, but I think the magic of the remake is that it leans 110% into the flip side of Evil Dead, which is just completely boundary pushing. There's blood, there's puke, there's limbs, there's undead, there's zombies, like there's the chainsaws. It's like, it's everything. So it leans like wholeheartedly into that absolutely like gonzo berserk extreme levels that the original Evil Dead alt matches. It's not funny. I think it's a fantastic remake. I love this movie.
I know Mother hates you now, and she waits for you in hell.
Yeah, I agree with the whole... The thing that really gets me about Evil Dead is that as a reboot, it could have just tried to like be as funny as Evil Dead 2, recapture the humor, bring out a chainsaw. It could have done all these like little nods and winks, but it really tried to be its own product. It really tried to do this deep metaphor about substance abuse and misuse and trying to overcome that demon while they're literally overcoming demons is a really good way to update this and make it a new modern classic.
And I just want to point out that there was also no CGI used in this movie except for like touch-ups. All of the effects are practical. All of the goo, all of the splatter, all of the liquids, you know, it's all practical. So I think there deserves to be just a shout out for the magnitude of that production in that sense. I think it's fantastic. So great choice. I was happy to see this here as well. This is an awesome movie.
Naturo de Monto.
Coming in at number 6, I'm delighted to say, is The Descent from 2005. Now, for a bit of context, we have a joke around the office that I'm always pushing this agenda for everyone to see this movie. So I feel extremely validated that the fans chose this as number 6. I love this movie.
You okay? No. See you down there.
I'll never go in a cave again. I mean, that's
Top fears: spelunking and humanoid creatures.
Whatever they are, they go to the surface to hunt, and they bring their food back down here to eat through an entrance.
What I think is amazing about this movie is that it starts at a 10 and then somehow keeps outdoing itself with the tension it builds, with how just sickeningly awful the situations they find themselves in. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. The action and the tension in this movie, it's like it gives me goosebumps. Like I feel it in my stomach when I talk about this movie. I'm just like, oh my god, it's so much.
Tell us how you really feel.
Did you know it's okay? We've got you.
Well, Tim, what do you make of The Descent? What do you think about it at number 6?
I like how it defies almost classification in the horror genre. I mean, it kind of starts as this very bleak human friendship drama, you know, with one of these characters having just recently experienced a horrible tragedy. And then it turns into just the most wild horror movie you can think of at a pin drop. One of the best jump scares, I think, if you know what I'm talking about, in horror. And from there, it never lets up. Yeah, show this to somebody who doesn't know it's a horror movie and see how they react.
Yeah, totally. I'll also just say that I find it really refreshing to see like all of these like women protagonists who are so capable and their dynamic is so complex. It makes them feel like they're very worthy protagonists and you're really invested in their story even before it turns into this gong show nightmare. This movie feels like a breath of fresh air, ironically, given the setting. All right, coming in at number 5, we have Saw, the original from 2004. Surprised? Not surprised?
No, I mean, yeah. I was gonna say the same thing.
You don't know me, but I know you. I want to play a game.
Yeah, I think it's now kind of a cliche of the franchise that kind of spawned of a movie with just as much violence and blood and degradation as possible. I think people took the wrong lesson from that and modeled, but the original is a really good closed-door mystery with a twist no one could have possibly seen coming. And having seen so many... at the time? Yeah, no way. So I really do like it. I just wish there were more saws in it, but besides that, I mean, Saw's a perfect movie.
Could use more saws.
Yeah, there's a couple.
He doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through our feet.
Going off what Andrew said about learning the wrong lessons from this movie, I think the thing that makes this movie work, aside from the twist, I mean, obviously, but is just how simple it is. Like, it has two guys in a trap, not for 60 seconds, but then they get murdered immediately after. They're there for like hours, and it's like a mystery movie. You know, they're trying to figure out why they're there, who's doing it to them, why they're doing it to them. You know, this movie does a really good job of playing with time. I mean, this is a really smart movie.
You sound like you admire this prick. To overcome something, you have to understand what a perfect engine it is.
That's how you fight disease.
Totally, the flashbacks within flashbacks are jumping around. At the time of its release, this movie actually got a lot of flack for being like a Seven ripoff, because it does borrow a lot from Seven. Though I didn't think of it that way, because kind of growing up with the franchise. But then I rewatching the original recently, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of see it. But I think we can say that almost 20 years later, like the impact that this movie had was enormous, and not just because we're living in like a franchise world now, but in particular, I read one critic was writing about how after Saw, or rather before Saw, horror was doing a lot of like remakes. There was a lot of like PG-13. There was a lot of teen movies, and then Saw kind of brought this really gritty, rugged, R-rated energy back into the genre that I think carried out for a few years. Like we can see movies like Hostel coming after that borrowed a lot from this kind of torture porn or whatever. I don't think really the original Saw can be classified that way. I think it is a lot of the time, but regardless. But this writer was attributing the pendulum swinging the other way in kind of the 2010s, the more heady, intellectual, socially conscious drama in the horror genre as being a reaction to kind of what came after Saw.
Mommy just needs you to be really, 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 really strong right now.
So ultimately, I think if you love Saw, hate Saw, love the franchise, hate the franchise, the impact that this movie had is undeniable on the genre as a whole in the 21st century. So credit where credit is due. I'm delighted to see Saw coming in at number 5.
I have to go and get help.
Don't leave me.
Moving right along, into the number 4 place today, as chosen by the fans, we have It from 2017.
Come join the clownets. You'll float down here. We'll float down here. Yes, we do.
What do you think,
Tim?
I would do the cross-eyed thing if I could, what the West does. But yeah, this movie is a total phenomenon when it came out. I was working at the theater, movie theater when this was out, and there was just an excitement in everyone who was showing up to all go see this movie that we've been waiting. I mean, the 90s one is good for its time, but like we've been waiting for a good version of this movie, and it did not disappoint. I mean, Bill Skarsgård's performance is iconic immediately. The kids in the movie are fantastic. The sense of humor in the movie keeps it chugging along even when there aren't scares. I mean, this movie does not miss at all, and it's super rewatchable.
Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
Yeah, the imagery of this movie is just nightmarish at every turn, and you could just think of a single scene from this movie, and that would be enough. That's more scares than some movies can have combined. It's really unsettling, really uncomfortable in all the best ways, because that's what you want from your horror. You really want to be like challenged and on your toes, and this one, every minute of this movie is a nightmare horror show. And the kids, my God, phenomenal. Also horror shows in their own little ways, but they're great.
Gary started as a beaver trapping camp.
Still is, am I right, boys?
Totally. I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I think this movie is equal parts like complete nightmare fuel, terrifying imagery, great jump scares. But there's also the kids are so charismatic. There's such great chemistry between them. This is an amazing cast, and I think there's kind of something like Spielbergian to the energy of this movie, and that you're really invested in the story of these kids, these coming of age misfits that work together so well, and that makes you really invested in their journey into nightmare world. So I love this movie. I was wondering if the fans would choose this for number 1, but I'm not surprised to see it this high in the list.
Fear.
All right, now before we reveal what you, the fans, have chosen for our top 3 picks for greatest horror movies of the 21st century, we do just want to give a shout out to some honorable mentions. Our first honorable mention is Ju-on the Grudge from 2002. Then we have It Follows from 2014. And finally, our third honorable mention is Get Out from 2017.
Whoa. Okay. Wow.
Reactions? Thoughts?
The fact that Get Out isn't on the list is kind of just crazy to me. I think it's the best horror film of the 21st century, personally, because of it's not just a smart horror film. but it is something that really fills a niche for an audience that has never really gotten that, like since like Candyman, something so brilliantly constructed for a Black audience. So it's kind of wild. It's not there. It's funny. It's horrifying. The sunken place is in our culture, but okay.
Man, I gotta say, I was shocked. I would have put this at least in the top 3. Tim?
Yeah, I completely agree. But since everything that needs to be said has already been said, I'll make my case for The Grudge.
The stairs scene haunted my life. I would have put that in my rank also. Wild. But let's see what the fans did choose as the top 3 greatest horror movies of the 21st century. I'm dying to know. You guys are, I'm sure, dying to know. Let's check it out.
I mean, I told you not to go in that house.
All right, everybody. So let's have a look at where we're at so far in our fan ranked list. So far, we're at options 10 through 4. Some interesting and notable omissions. I'm excited to see what's left. So without further ado, let's reveal what the fans have chosen in our number 3 spot. Coming in at number 3, we have The Ring from 2002.
Someone knows you've watched it. And what they say is, you will die in 7 days.
Now, just for context, Ringu, the original Japanese film, came out in 1998, so is not up for consideration in this list. But I think The Ring is a really strong film on its own, not just as a remake. And this was absolutely a phenomenon. I stand by including the American remake. Tim, what are your thoughts on The Ring?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of the best remakes ever made, if not one of the best horror remakes ever made. I mean, it's just so effective. I mean, yeah, it piggybacks off of the original, but I mean, it is super a fun ride the whole way through. Very engaging mystery, very spooky imagery. I remember the first time I watched this, my friend surreptitiously called me on the phone without me knowing it. I'm super gullible, it totally got me. But I think that speaks to just how good the movie is.
Yeah, I agree. I was scared for a week afterwards that I was gonna die. It's like everyone remembers the 7 days. Everyone remembers the cursed videotape. Everyone remembers, like, I wouldn't do that, but with viral videos, who knows? If this was a TikTok, half of the population of America would be dead. So
it's a TikTok challenge, yeah.
And try to watch this video and not die in 7 days.
You don't want to hurt anyone.
But I do, and I'm sorry. It won't stop.
And it has one of my favorite fun facts ever, which is the girl who played Samara, Davy Chase, also played Lilo and Stitch the same year. She was Lilo. So let that mess with your mind forever.
My friends need to be punished.
I was gonna say, is she Stitch?
Yeah, she was Lilo and Stitch. It's a Rick and Morty situation.
It's a one-woman show behind the scenes. Yeah, man, there's something about this movie that just gets under your skin. It is cold. It is like, there's a dampness, like even just in watching this movie that like a well, actually, that just gets under your skin, that makes you feel like this movie is without love. I find that makes it very hard to like stomach this really jarring images that just come one after the other. I remember I was too young when The Ring came out to watch it that year, but I remember they showed Samara crawling out of the TV in the trailer that I saw on TV, and I was scared like that. Even today, like as an adult, it makes my stomach flip a little bit when I think about it. Like that's such an incredible moment. I think one of the scariest scenes ever in any film ever. Either in Ringu or in The Ring. I think in Ringu, that scene has a little more space to breathe, but it's still very impactful in the remake. Love this movie. And I'm excited to see that fans went with something a little older this high in the list. All right, moving right along to number 2, I am delighted to announce that the fans have chosen Hereditary from 2017. 2018, pardon me. This would have been my number 1 pick. This, in my opinion, is the scariest movie of the 21st century. This movie, much like, in a different way, like The Ring, haunted my life for a really long time after I saw it. What were your guys' reactions when you first saw this movie?
The same. I mean, the level of anxiety in this movie is so palpable.
Foreboding.
Forget about the actual horror theatrics. I mean, the performances are so good. I remember how I can just think of this movie and remember how it made me feel watching it for the first time, in the best way possible, by the way. I agree. This would be my number 1 of the 21st century. It's not even that close. No offense to the rest, but yeah, wow, what a visceral experience this movie is.
Yeah, I think this reminded people that horror movies can be Oscar contenders, because the way it's shot, the way it's acted, the way the story is constructed, the sound design, the set design of the little miniatures, that fold out into this huge, big thing, her crawling on the ceiling. Who is ever going to forget her sitting above the bed? It's incredible. Everything in this movie is done with so much care and love, and it's not just here to scare you, it's there to truly shake you. And, also, heads up.
Hey.
Heads up when you watch this movie. Maybe don't watch it with your siblings, because it's a rough one.
Whoa. Yeah, rough to say the least. I kind of view this as the Exorcist of our generation. I think it brings you in with this incredibly dense, rich family drama, so that before it even enters the complete nightmare stage, of which, I have to just say, the imagery is unbelievable, and I think some of the scariest scenes that have been filmed in recent memory, or maybe ever. But even before it reaches that point of absolute madness, this is a crazy family drama that is so intense and so hard to watch that I found that even before it devolves into a crazy horror movie, I was already struggling to sit through it. And I think that's kind of tied to a legacy of what The Exorcist did, something very similar with this rich family drama and these external factors that by the time it even reaches the point of being terrifying, you have no idea at that point where this movie is going. There are shocking twists and turns along the way. You think it's one thing, and there are multiple points in the movie where I found myself thinking, I have no idea where this movie is going. So I'm really happy to see this high. This would have been my number 1 pick, but I think number 2 is a respectable place for Hereditary. Shall we see what the fans chose for number 1?
Let's do it.
Okay. For the number 1 choice, top 10 greatest horror movies of the 21st century, the fans have chosen The Conjuring, the original film from 2013.
Hey, wanna play hide and clap?
Surprised or not surprised?
I'm flabbergasted in a couple ways. I remember seeing this with my friends, and it was a really fun time. It was a really fun time in the theater. There were some really good jump scares, some really scary things. I think the story is also pretty solid. And this is another movie that goes on and influences a lot of movies that come after it. A lot of these really low budget, high scare movies. Not my personal number 1, but I can't say it's without merit. I think it definitely is a fun horror movie to revisit.
I wasn't expecting to see it on here this high, but you know, I mean, I think it does speak to how popular this movie was when it came out and still is. I mean, like Andrew said, you know, this movie had a huge impact on the horror landscape. I mean, I can think of, I think, 2 cinematic universes that actually worked. And I think you know what the other one is besides this one. Yeah, I mean, this movie changed the game in a lot of ways. Whether or not it's entirely factually accurate doesn't really matter in terms of film quality. It's still an awesome ride.
Nancy?
Yeah, I'll say this movie to me is kind of steeped with horror nostalgia. It pulls like a lot from, of course, like the Amityville Horror. I think it pulls a lot from movies like The Exorcist, these kind of 70s family drama, paranormal, freak show movies. That in a way, like because it's familiar, seeing something that's familiar done at such a high level with such a great budget, great cast, and it's really scary, like very tense scenes. I think it harkens back to a different era, but it does it in a modern way that's very sleek and very, I think, effective. Would I say that The Conjuring is an inventive movie? No, I don't think we're reinventing the wheel here, but you know what? They made a damn good wheel and it works really well and I really like it. So I would say I'm surprised to see it this high. I wouldn't have chosen it personally, but I can see why people connect with it so much. I just rewatched it kind of in preparation for this. I expected it to be on the list. I didn't think it was going to take number 1, but great movie. I think if you divorce it from the rest of the franchise, this one stands alone. And the second one is good too.
You did good.
No, you did.
So there we have it. Let's take a look. What is our top 10 greatest horror films of the 21st century according to our fans? Let's take a look. Guys, what would you change? Let's just start there because this is a huge genre. There's so much going on. Of course, we could do we're actually keep an eye out for Halloween Day. We will be publishing top 100 greatest horror movies of all time. But this is what our fans have chosen. What would you guys change? Let's start there.
Well, I'd get out The Conjuring right out of the number 1 spot personally. I think I would do a Hereditary at 1, Get Out at 2, and The Ring at 3.
Yeah.
Leave the audience to guess where I put The Conjuring. But I think that's what my major change would be. I just have different feelings about the number 1, so that's just me.
By the way, I would have voted for Obama for a 3rd term if I could. Best president in my lifetime, hands down.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's valid. I mean, Tim, what do you think?
I completely agree with everything you just said. But to say something different, I guess I'll prop up. I think It Follows should be on here. Yep. I think that movie gets better every time I watch it as well. Super creepy watch. It rewards you for paying attention, which is hard to do these days when you're watching at home with your phone next to you. So yeah, I would put that on here somewhere.
Do you guys see that girl right there?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for me, I would do Hereditary at 1. I would put Get Out at 2 for sure. I would have put The Grudge on the list. I think the imagery from that movie haunted. Like I think it's something maybe about our age or the way or at the time that it came out that I feel so connected to those movies because that imagery is so poignant for me. The shower scene and the bed scene, like there are these moments in that movie that I think transcend the actual film, that it feels like it could be around you all the time. I would also nominate Rec, a Spanish zombie movie from 2007, I want to say. That's an incredible movie. It was remade. The American version is called Quarantine, but Rec, the original, is unbelievable. Full of twists and turns, kind of an unconventional zombie film, but amazing. That's what I would also nominate to be included here. But yeah, I mean, all of those movies came up in conversation as I was like engaging with our community and seeing what people thought. I mean, these movies were not outside of the conversation. I think horror is something that does end up being so personal and so tied to your age and your era. I think much like comedy is very much tied to its era and to its context. I think horror is the same way. So it's always really interesting to see what gets under everybody's skin. I think it always hits differently, and that was a really cool like learning experience in putting together this episode. So thank you again to everybody who voted. It's been a time.
Yeah. Thank you for not putting The Happening or Mithrigan here, because you could have. And
what?
They're great movies.
No. No.
These are fantastic movies.
What? No.
All right, that was so interesting. I loved this experience of getting to chat with everybody about their horror picks and what freaks people out. What are those scenes that really stay with people? This was like such an awesome experience. So many thanks to everybody who voted, who dropped us a comment and participated. If you want to participate in the ranking of our next episode, keep an eye on our social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter or X. We make postings letting people know what our next topic's going to be. You can vote and participate there. So keep an eye out. We love to hear from you guys. And the show wouldn't be possible without you. This was an absolute blast. And thank you, Andrew, Tim, for joining. This was awesome. So we'll see you guys next time. And happy spooky season.